There are other geopolitical rumblings that investors are watching, namely North Korea. President Trump and his top national security advisor said there are military options for dealing with that country after it fired a missile over Japan last night.
There is a military option. Now, it's not what we would prefer to do. So what we have to do is call on all nations, call on everyone to do everything we can to address this global problem short of war.
We have two reports tonight from the region. First in Seoul is Chery Kang.
North Korea's latest missile that flew over the northern part of Japan for the second time in 3 weeks serves a couple of different purposes for the regime. First, it sends a message to Washington that its missiles can indeed reach U.S. territory of Guam if fired in the right direction. This particular missile traveled 3,700 kilometers. That very well covers the distance between North Korea and Guam. And two, it defies the latest UN Security Council resolutions and its sanctions. And three, it gets to test its missiles, and its latest focus seems to be launching its missiles in the normal angle. But in terms of the reaction coming from the relevant countries, it stays pretty much the same. South Korea conducted its own missile exercise. Japan says this is not going to be tolerated. The United States called for direct action from Russia and China. China, in the meantime, says this is between Washington and Pyongyang. For Nightly Business Report, Chery Kang, Seoul.
But as Chery mentioned, Washington wants China to play a bigger role in the North Korean crisis. And that complicates an already complicated economic relationship between the world's first and second largest economies. Eunice Yoon has more from Beijing.
Pressure is mounting on China to do more to rein in North Korea, including from U.S. Secretary of State Rex Tillerson. China responded today, saying that Beijing shouldn't be the one held responsible. At a regular press briefing, the foreign ministry said China is not at the center of the conflict. China is not a driver of the escalation of tensions, and China does not hold the key to solving the issue. The ministry was reacting to Secretary Tillerson's statement after North Korea's missile test, when he said China and Russia must indicate their intolerance for these reckless missile launches by taking direct actions of their own. Tillerson had said that the U.S. had pushed for an oil embargo to be included as part of tougher UN sanctions, but watered down the demands to get China and Russia on board. He said he had hoped China would, quote, take it upon themselves to use the very powerful tool of oil supply to persuade North Korea to reconsider. China has some suggestions of its own for the U.S. The foreign ministry said today, we think the relevant parties should take responsibility for their duties and fulfill their obligations. From China's perspectives, those parties are the U.S. and South Korea and North Korea. All this week, the Chinese state press has been full of commentaries saying that the U.S. and South Korea should end their military exercises. Beijing has argued that Pyongyang needs a reason to join the international community and feel secure giving up its weapons program. China believes these drills are being interpreted as threats. That argument was stressed in the state media again today. The Global Times, a Communist Party paper, ran an editorial with the headline that reads, "The international community should not panic. The U.S. and South Korea hold the power to change the Korean peninsula." For Nightly Business Report, I'm Eunice Yoon in Beijing.